Now, while Alex did take the DRL World Championship, he did not take the Multi-GP Nationals. That honor was taken by Evan Turner. And Alex and I talk about that. And we actually get into a topic that is taboo. We talk about Alex's faith and what the loss meant for him. I hope that y'all enjoy it. I really enjoyed this part of the interview. And I hope that you guys like it too. I'll talk to you soon. Bye.
Thank you.
Let's move on. Let's move on to the next topic. Let's move on to multi-GP nationals. So Logan, my son Logan and I, we watched the final 16, and I mean, we hung. Number one, MultiGP did such a good job of that broadcast. It was. I was just impressed by, I know there were probably a lot of technical hurdles. It was probably a huge challenge, but they kept the live stream up, and they kept the, Scully is obviously amazing, and they kept the banner going, but then the racing would happen, right? And I just remember watching all of you guys fly, and it was mind-boggling. I mean, just mind-boggling to watch you and Evan and guys like Sean Taylor and Thomas Bitmata. And you know, they had the 4x4 screen. I don't know if you've seen any of the playbacks.
Yeah, I have. I watched it. Oh, yeah.
They had the 4x4 screen, and you would just, like, your eye would just dart around. It was just so amazing. It was really, and now I will say this, it's really hard to tell who was in the lead and who was where. I mean, because I wasn't familiar with the track layout even towards the end, but besides the ending, what moments in that final really stand out to you?
Besides like the whole final, like the outcome, or just the whole thing in general?
Besides the outcome.
Well, first off, it was a really well-run event. It was cold. It was freezing cold, which made it really, really hard on the pilots. I mean, we're all bundled up and everything.
Yeah.
And it was pretty windy too, for most people who weren't there. And the track was very, very difficult. The hardest multi-GP track I've ever raced in my life. That back dive gate was killer. For me, I was at least proud of myself of how well I did fly. Flew consistent. I flew fast. My best moment was going into that final, that Chase Days final, where Evan was Ironman, and I'm like, oh, here we go again, right? And I mean, as far as I could be wrong about this, so someone can correct down below, but once someone's been in Ironman, they've never, like, Ironman has always won, right? An Ironman has never been taken away, right? And for me to go out there and just put it all together, I had Justin Skinner, it will be fun, and Jordan Jett spotted for me. I had my pit guy Bob Mazza, Justin Skinner's wife, and I had Drew from Rotor Riot. I had a very small team of people cheering for me. A lot of people wanted Evan to win that, and that's good. You want to be behind the champion and everything. There was a lot of pressure on me, but that was good because with all the attention taken kind of off of me, I was able to focus on what I needed to do and went out and won that first race. I just flew perfect, straight up. I mean, it was really hard to fly that well that night, just with all the conditions and everything. And to be honest, it was kind of a roll the dice, and I flew just like I trained. That was kind of the highlight for me. And obviously, everything else happened, but going out there and flying my best and proving to me, my team, and everyone else who was there watching that I could beat Evan. He wasn't this unstoppable king. That was, even after the whole outcome and everything, that was very, very important to me, and definitely the best thing I can say walking away from that event.
I think you had, so for those that haven't watched it or haven't heard, the placing was Evan 1, Thomas Bitmata took 2nd, and you took 3rd. And I think there was a little bit of controversy over how they scored 3rd and 2nd, and you crashed out, but he didn't. So
we'll talk about that.
Yeah.
I would like to talk about that, but we'll get there.
Well, let's hit that now. Let's talk about that.
Sweet.
Yeah, let's hit it now.
All right, so quick recap for everyone. Yeah, I won the first race. It's Chase Days format, so you got to win twice to win. This is really important to remember. 2 wins, is a win. You need to win the championship. I won the first race. Evan won the second and third race. Okay. No one else, Strobot and Thomas, did not win a single race.
Right.
Okay. And not to discredit them, I mean, Strobot's a killer pilot. Right. Thomas, of course, another world champion. And I was a little surprised when they said that I had gotten third. You know, it was in their rule book, apparently. I haven't read it yet, but apparently it's in their rule book that if it comes to a tiebreaker, then it goes to who did better in that final race. Okay. I was just a bit disappointed in that rule, I suppose. Like, it is what it is, but I think that's a rule that should be really addressed and changed for next year. And I think the reason that I'm going to sound so biased, man, saying this, because, yeah, I took third, and I really think I should have at least gotten second. But think about it. If you win a race, think of that as like getting 1 point. Right. So, like, I had 1 point, Evan had 2 points, Thomas and Drobat had 0 points. Yeah. How should someone who didn't win a single race do better than me? That's what A main format is like. And multi-GP's whole point of Chase the Ace is that there is no, like, it's not supposed to be A main format. It gets rid of all the bad things of A main format, but that's literally what it's coming down to. So, and then in other leagues, right, if there is a tiebreaker, then they go off of who qualified better, right? And in my case, I qualified better than Thomas. Or they go off of, did Vanover go into the loser's bracket? Never went into the loser's bracket. Thomas is in the loser's bracket. So I was a bit bitter about that. I still am, but it's nothing against Thomas, to be clear. I'm super happy for Thomas. He was flying very consistent the entire weekend. Maybe not on the same gear as Evan and I, but he flew very consistent. And based on their rule book, he played it just right. And, I was then there to win. So, like, when I crashed, there was no getting back up. My quad was destroyed. So, I don't know. This is more of a rant than is kind of a question and answer, I think.
Well, it's they had I think one of the interesting things, like, I talked recently to Angela Jacks, and I've talked to Chris Thomas, and I think there's always a balance between how you build the rules and how understandable they are. And sometimes I think that you just don't know how strange a rule might be until it actually occurs. And I don't know. I mean, I don't follow MultiGP racing very closely. But I mean, as far as I know, in the Nationals, that's never happened before.
Nope. Never.
No. So, I mean, and like you said, not to take away from Thomas, because he flew well. Yeah. In his exit interview, I distinctly remember him saying, I'm still dealing with jet lag. And I'm just like, phew,
poor Thomas, man. I love Thomas. We were teammates, but man, he needs to get over this jet lag. Like, he was in Florida for like a week before, because he really? He always gets. I feel bad for Thomas because he always gets sick every time he travels internationally. Like in Korea, just a few weeks before he was sick. I feel bad for him. So props to him for being able to push through that. I mean, anyhow, he was. You could tell he wasn't doing the best, but to be fair, no one was. It was 40 degrees outside and humid and freezing. We were all battling it pretty hard.
40 degrees in Miami is pretty miserable.
It was probably closer to 50, but it was humid and it was like wet in the air. Yeah. So like it was freezing.
Yeah, that's crazy. So one of the things that I've always admired about you is, even though you are very confident in yourself and you're very confident in your statements and you're not afraid to make the big statements. Yep. I think one of the things that impressed me the most about you out of the Nationals was that you were extraordinarily gracious in the loss. You had a Facebook post that you just, you thanked all the people you're supposed to thank, right? But then you went on to really build up both Evan and Thomas, and just, there was a sense of gratitude that you could compete with them at their level. But then you dove into something that I didn't expect, which was you talked about your faith and how you'd come to faith in the last year. And I want to hear a little bit more about that. What's the story there?
Yeah, here comes my testimony. I mean, for anyone who doesn't know, I grew up in a religious family. My dad was a Christian. My mom's a Christian. My brother's a Christian. And I've been blessed. I've been to this Bible church for probably 10 years now, almost, give or take. And one of the best Bible churches you can go to. very different than any other church, and I always kind of thought, emotionally at times where like you hear a good message, right, and you think I'm a Christian, right? You do what you're supposed to do for a few days at a time here and there, and you really believe in your mind that you are. But I was smart enough to figure out towards high school that I wasn't a Christian based on the way I was living my life, and even in the last year and 2 years. And then it kind of occurred to me earlier this spring that if what happens if I die in a car ride coming home today, am I going to heaven or am I going to hell, right? And so I started looking for answers. Like I feel like I needed proof that God existed. I needed proof. Like, okay, fine, I'll believe and I'll give up my sin if I can like see God, if I can prove that God's real. And we had a really interesting lesson in Romans at our church, and I was always listening, paying attention, taking notes. And it basically talked about how even if you saw God, even if God came to your house, you would still not give up your sin to follow him. Like if you're already not willing to give it up for him based on all this evidence that's in front of you, seeing him isn't going to change a thing. And at first I'm like, it makes sense. And so started praying, started reading, and kind of came to the fact that I was willing to give up my sin, which no one's perfect. Only Jesus is perfect. You and I know that. Everyone's going to make mistakes still, and it's hard to change, to literally 180 your life. But, I've been willing to do that. I've been willing to do that for him, because the only reason I'm here and that you're here and everyone who's watching is here is because of him. I mean, the only reason that we can be forgiven and go to heaven is because of his son's sacrifice. So without getting too much into boring everyone who's probably already clicked, hopefully no one's clicked away on this just yet. I really hope some of you got to listen to that. That maybe made a little impact on you or something. But that's
What do you think? Like, how has that changed the way that you've lived since April? Yeah,
it's been no exact time. It's weird. It's all, in a way, it's not really a blur to me. But this whole last year I've been thinking like, oh gosh, it's the hardest time when you become a Christian is just that your whole life, right? But especially that time when you convert and you're like, all right, I'm going to live my life for Christ. And then you're like, oh, I got to 180 my life. What are my friends going to think? What is everyone else going to think? And you get really scared to go public with that. So in one way, you're like, I felt like most of this year I was living two personalities, like two lives. Me and my close friends and I, they kind of saw the real me, and then I had this alternate personality because I was scared to what people are gonna. Because the moment you come public, everyone's gonna judge every single thing you say from that point out, and it was still really hard for me, to change things I say and do and everything, and that's been really hard. But at the same time, it's been a real test, and I feel like this is a real test for me to change the way I live my life and make an impact on other people. I've been really praying about it. I really think that's how I'm going to help myself, is by trying to make an impact on other people. And that's kind of where that message at the end of my Facebook post kind of tied into.
I can say, I've, you're 19, I'm 40. But I remember being in my 20s, early 20s, and a Christian. I've been a Christian since I was 5. But standing in an evolutionary biology lab, sequencing frog DNA, and wondering, can I really truly believe in God, in Christ, if I also believe in all of these things that everybody teaches don't exist? And I know the struggle for me has always been, I'm a man of science. I believe the science, I believe the things that research proves, and yet at the same time, there's this struggle against faith. And I find myself constantly being put in positions where I talk to. I'm not generally surrounded by a bunch of followers. A lot of times I end up as the only Christian in the midst of a bunch of really smart people that can debate circles around me. And yet absolutely. At the same time, all of it falls back to the faith aspect of it. I'm not your dad. It's not my place to be proud of you, but I was proud of you when you came out and talked about that.
It was weird because I I was really, really upset that night. I mean, yeah.
I could tell.
It's a whole nother, yeah. And that was I typed that post. I got up. My pit guy and I, Bob Mazza, we came straight back. We didn't really go eat or anything. We got back to our Airbnb at 8 p.m. We both tried to go to bed, and I think we both didn't sleep a single more than 5 minutes that night. And we both woke up at like 6 a.m. I mean, we could hear each other, just both. We couldn't sleep. And I just got up and I did the only thing that I know how to do, if anyone knows me, and that's type long Facebook posts. And I did. And that was kind of therapy for me. But also, I typed all that up without really thinking much about it. That was just all. That was probably the most true to heart Facebook post I've ever made in my life. But thinking back to it, I don't think I would have made that same impactful post, congratulating the other people, my family, my friends, and then coming out with my faith. And I won nationals. And I think that kind of comes down to God has a plan that can be really hard to understand at times, but he has a plan and it is perfect. And I think, not saying that, I'm excusing my performance at nationals by any means, but I feel like what I wouldn't take back, and I'll say this with the bottom of my heart, as much as I'd love to go rerun that final race or whatever, I wouldn't change a single thing. Because if I had won, there's a good chance I would have just been like, yep, I'm back. Champ's back. Not, glorifying the people who've helped me get to where I am or Lord or anything like that. So, I mean, it's all meant to.
It's hard to be humble when you're standing on top.
Yeah.
I mean,
really
truthfully.
Yeah. It really is.
So, with Evan winning the nationals, he's going to be competing against you next season in DRL.
Yep.
What do you think about
pumped.
that?
I'm ready. Bring it. Here comes my cockiness back. Here we go. 180. No, I'm happy for him because in 2017 when I won nationals, I wasn't old enough to compete in DRL. I got the call, couldn't make it happen. So this year being able to compete was awesome. I think Evan being able to compete, be the first 16 or 17-year-old to race on DRL is a big deal. And people are going to think I'm so full of it right now because Evan and I have this rivalry, and Evan and I are good friends now, really. I think we get along. We're definitely competitors on the track, but I'm ready for him. I'm really excited for him more than anything. I'm excited to see, because his flying style doesn't really match DRL whatsoever, and mine kind of did. I'm really excited to see kind of like how I had to change my flying style even more, how much his flying does change, if it does at all change for DRL. I mean, the reality is if it does change in a better way, it's going to be scary watching him race a 5-inch quad because he's going to get much smoother and much more consistent. But, I mean, I'm excited. We'll see what next season presents. All I know is I got a year of racing on DRL ahead of him. I got a lot of experience. As we talked about, it's a lot different. I hope he watched those interviews and took as many notes as he could because he's got a lot coming for next season. He's not going to be the only new fast pilot in there either. It's the whole competition. I mean, you watch it. It's, I think, level 3 finals. If you watch the Golden Heat and everything, it's like it was Duncan, Gab, and I, and it was 0.3 seconds. So it's like it just takes one tiny mistake.
That was super tight.
Right, and I had no idea until I watched it how tight it was. Like Gab probably would have beaten me, but he clipped a pole. It's the same thing in multi-GP, but in DRL, those little mistakes hurt 1,000 times more than they do in a multi-GP or any other race because it's a lot more on the line.
Justin Skinner, when I talked to him, he called it teleporting.
Yeah,
he
exactly
said,
right.
He said with a 5-inch quad, you make a mistake, you just teleport back.
Yep.
He said with a spec racer or something where the playing field is leveled, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So it's just it's really interesting. I think either you or Evan during nationals clipped a gate, still recovered, and one of you pulled out second. I might not be remembering that.
In that second race of finals, Thomas and I hit immediately. Both had really messed up props. And Evan stayed out of the chaos, but hit like 2 gates. Really bad. They had to DVR review it and everything.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right.
And he kept going. I got to give hats off. I mean, I am not sponsored by Evan's frame or props, but I got to give hats off to both because, I mean, those are hard hits. And he kept flying. So, I mean, respect to him there on his gear and his flying abilities to be able to recover. But in DRL, there was no such thing as recover. Yeah. It is explosion. Yeah. And even if you just make a mistake and don't crash, you can see the levels all throughout the season. You make one mistake, one little prop tap, you get put back and forth, you can be behind everyone else and never catch up. It's just there's not enough chances to do it, and he'll learn that on DRL.
Right.
I'm not gonna underestimate him. I'm gonna make it very, very clear. I will not underestimate him. I'm gonna keep training the same way I have, and hopefully prove everyone right about my dedication and everything, and prove myself right.
So the last question on nationals, and I they would occasionally bounce out to this wide angle shot, and I noticed that after a lot of races, after nationals was over, even a lot of you guys seemed close. Like it there wasn't like I don't remember, like I remember somebody at one point, I think it was when Thomas got bumped out into the losers bracket, somebody just walking up to him and putting their arm around him, and I don't know what was said, I don't know what was done, and it's possible I'm not remembering it correctly, but I just remember there being like a camaraderie that I didn't expect to see in such a competitive sport. Is it, and like you talk about now, being friends with Evan, where I don't know that that's always been the case.
No,
but yeah.
Not at all.
But is there a camaraderie amongst you folks that are at the top of MultiGP?
There has to be. It's the same thing in any other sport, really. If I am a heavy believer that if you do not want to, when the race starts, just destroy your opponent. Maybe not just win. If you don't have that desire to win, and winning means beating the other people and being better, if you don't have that desire the moment that buzzer goes off, you're not going to win. You have to believe in yourself that you're going to win that race, and that's kind of where that camaraderie comes. We're all great friends, we're all laughing out there, but the moment, like even at nationals, Evan and I were all chit-chatty, but the moment we're in those finals, we're not looking at each other. We're not waving at each other.
It's not like you're giving each other fist bumps and being like, good luck.
Right.
I mean,
good luck.
you're like in the zone, right? I mean, the tension around both of you was so, I mean, quite frankly, I almost feel like they sabotaged Evan, not to take away from your performance, and I don't want to, but I feel like just the announcement, which he could hear going into the first heat of Chase the Ace. I mean, it just seemed like they put him under so much pressure, and he just couldn't.
Oh, 100%.
He just couldn't handle it. But you also raced an incredible race.
I had the same thing, right? Where it's like they put me under pressure. It's like if he wins this, okay, that's true. He gets it.
That's true. It works both ways.
Yeah, and I think the bigger kind of takeaway or question from that really is, you look at all the pressure and everything that is put on us as pilots. In those circumstances on this type of track, which was not my style of track or really anyone's. I don't think anyone really loved that track.
Yeah.
I mean
the triple power loop.
That was cool. I like that part.
Yeah,
that was fun. But like I can't diss on MultiGP. They had a great setup, but that track was literally an obstacle course. Yeah. Which was good, but it was really hard to follow as a spectator and everything. Yeah. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, I knew it at the end of the day, and maybe this wasn't the mentality I should have put myself in, but I knew going into that first race where I won, the second and third race, that it was quite frankly a roll of the dice. Even numbers he wins, odd numbers I win, because we were so close. And I knew Evan still had just a little. I still believe this. He had just a little edge on me in being able to hold that top end speed. But I knew consistency wise, with all the elements that were out there, you could rerun that first race. You could rerun the second or third one. It could be a whole nother outcome. Drobot could win. Thomas could win. I mean, at the end of the day, I wanted to put that in there somehow, just because more than the pressure of announcers is just that underlying pressure, knowing that it is so freaking close. That it just takes one little thing. Like I got rear-ended with Thomas the second race. It's out of my control. That's drone racing.
Look, I'm 42, and I've never won a world championship. I've never competed at the national level. But more than that, I am a Christian, and still at 42, it's hard to be completely open about that, because you do get judged. People question you. I mean, it's not in vogue anymore to be a man or a person of faith. I respect Alex greatly for that post that he made and for coming on the show to talk about that. Whatever faith you are, whether you're a Muslim, a Christian, Jewish, agnostic, atheist, we all, at the end of the day, are human, and it's important that we try to get along. So, I don't know, my little way of saying, let's all stand up for what we believe, but at the same time, let's value our fellow man. Your conversion is between you and God, quite frankly. I'd like to thank my patrons. They're awesome. I love them. They get a podcast version of this interview, the entire thing, dropped on the day that everything else drops. If you'd like to be part of that, if you'd like to support what I do, there's a link in the description below, as well as a link to Alex's page. But you're probably already subscribed to Alex's page. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those things. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.